Hi, my name is Harris. I'm one of your podcast hosts. I'm also a lawyer at Treadstone Law. For most Canadians, buying, selling, or refinancing real estate, a lawyer is the last thing on their mind. That's unfortunate because lawyers play a vital role in the process. But what choices do Canadians have? Lawyers can be very expensive. Well, Treadstone Law offers resources to Canadians so they have access to the information they need. Whether you sign up for a live workshop or a mailing list, we cover topics to help you make informed decisions and avoid costly mistakes. It's advice you can start using today, and best of all, it's free. Visit treadstonelaw.ca/MAS offer or click the link below to get access right now. If you're looking to retain Treadstone Law, it's never been easier. Our entire process is online. From completing the retainer agreement to your signing appointment, everything is done from the comfort of your own home. We're your digital lawyers. The best part of it is that you don't pay anything when you're retaining our firm. Visit treadstonelaw.ca/MAS offer or click on the link below to retain us right now. Enjoy the podcast. Welcome to another episode of Hustle and Grit. Today on my podcast, I have Ajeet. He's a special guest joining us as an expert in the world of real estate. He is a highly accomplished realtor, but also a trusted advisor with all things related to buying, selling, and investing in properties. Welcome to the podcast, Ajeet.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
It's my pleasure, and I'm gonna jump right into it because I'm looking at your profile. I find that you have a very rich profile in terms of your history, in terms of your academic background, and in terms of things that you've done before. And most of the times I ask questions, I genuinely start off and I say, hey, I asked my guests, have they wanted to become a realtor or whatever professional from like the beginning of days, or was this something that they kind of fell into? Safe to say, after kind of looking at your profile, it's something that you kind of organically moved into. Can you give my listeners a little bit of your background as to how you got to become a realtor? What made you kind of move into the profession? Also, where you started off in terms of your education and the kind of experience you had prior to coming into the industry.
Yeah, for sure. So I came here as an international student in 2006. I went to University of Waterloo and I did my actuarial science. So I was good at numbers, but initially when you get into university, all you think about is okay, graduation, 9 to 5, that's it. You sometimes don't think beyond it. You don't know what the definition of passion is. It just so throughout my journey, I knew what I was good at, math, people person, but I did not know what kind of job I want to do. So after my first job, I realized this is not something I don't want to do, but I did not know what I want to do. So after my first resignation that I gave, I got my job in Vancouver. I was getting into different kind of businesses. So I started with photography, choreography. I know it sounds crazy, but
Yeah,
I was exploring myself to see
yeah.
what I actually like. I was at that time, IT was getting very boomed. So I was getting into an application. I was bringing ideas, but slowly, by finding these different venues, I did a partnership with someone for a renovation business. I said, okay, this is something that really entertained me. And when I got into the renovation business, I realized I am having so much knowledge about real estate and I have such a big network of my university friends. I said, how about I become a real estate agent and I start selling? So that was the first instinct that I got when I got into the property business, and then I got to know that okay, real estate is something that I'm really liking it.
Yeah. Well, how did you get into the property? Like, did somebody tell you to start doing renovations? Like, what made you kind of jump into that? Like, as you're kind of experimenting and figuring things out, was it somebody who came along and said, "Hey, this is amazing," or was this something you're like, you know what, let me try this. I don't like know anything about it. I don't know anybody who's kind of bringing me into this, but I'm gonna jump into this and see if it works.
So as I mentioned that when you were I was doing so many things, I knew what I didn't like. Was someone in my background told me that property is booming in Canada. That was in 2015, where I
Hmm.
saw that property pricing were actually rising. So that was the industry I knew that's gonna stay here because
Hmm.
of the immigrants. So I did a partnership through a friend, and it worked out. We did a decent profit, and during that time, I realized that how about I become an agent
Hmm.
and utilize all my resources because I was a people person anyways. So that's how I got into it.
Yeah. So why don't you like changing gears a little bit? So now that you're as a realtor and you're operating as a realtor, what do you miss the corporate life in any way? Because I see that you're like you said, you did your undergrad in actuarial what is it, actuarial sciences,
Yeah.
yeah, which is extremely difficult. For those of my listeners who don't know, that's like a hard math program, and it's coming out of some of the best universities in Canada. So that's a hard math. It is very right-brained type of situation where real estate is, I would argue, is more on a left brain. Well, more so, there is some right, but there is more on the left brain side. So you went from that, then you're a pension analyst, and that's a trajectory towards like hard very lucrative finance jobs here. I know that there's a lot of people, because I did my undergrad in finance and economics. Everybody wanted to go that route. They wanted to go down like the finance route, whether you're going to get an MBA in finance, CFA, whatever it is, and then you're going to go into finance. So, but it's not and it's very different. It's a different world altogether from real estate, because finance, or especially with this, it was a pure and correct me if I'm wrong. You're looking at Excel sheets. You're looking at graphs, right? It's very heavy in logic, very heavy in reasoning. The Excel sheet is not going to argue back with you. It's not going to have emotions in it. You're going to just look at it, and the math is what the math is. Now you're moving towards something that is kind of left brain. You're dealing with emotions, right? You're dealing with people who are kind of on the side of, hey, I want to buy a house because, not because necessarily it makes resale sense, not because of the quality necessarily. It's because I need to see, and all those things could be there, but I need to see that I could raise a family there, or I could live with my partner there, or I could have the single life there. Like, I need to envision. It's a very emotional side. So how did you manage to go from a place of pure right brain, or more of the right brain, to somewhere where you're more of the left brain? How did you kind of manage that transition?
That's actually I when I was working 9 to 5. Um, the 9 to 5 job was so one dimensional that you're working for someone. There was
Yeah.
not much freedom there, right? And I knew that okay, I have more capability, but need more freedom. So and real estate provided me that freedom. Trust me, if I wouldn't have graduated and studied actual design, I don't think I would have been a successful real estate agent.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because that world teaches you the skills which I can apply in a real estate world.
Hmm.
We like every day when I wake up, a real estate agent is like a puzzler. We
Hmm.
know client's emotion, we know their finances, we know their situation, and we are basically a person who basically combine everything and find you a solution.
Hmm. Yeah.
So, and as a actuary, I think My math skill and accounting skill actually helped me to be a better agent for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So now, do you? I mean, from the investment perspective, definitely all of that helps because I think that math and understanding whether property is going to be profitable is not everyone's cup of tea. It's something that like really is an acquired kind of skill set. I know that you see a lot of like, hey, buy 10 million homes and you're going to be rich forever and all this other stuff online, but it is not something that everyone can stomach. It's something that like is you have to have the right professionals around you like yourself, and you need to be making the right decisions, and that does become more math heavy. So when you moved into real estate, were you even now? Are you helping? Is your kind of, for a lack of better words, is your love in helping people invest, buy pre-construction, step up, step down? Kind of what's your focus, if any?
Well, I started with resale for sure. The good thing
Yeah.
about real estate, there are so many different segments, and uh, I am jumping into each segment. So I started with resale, helping people who are the first-time home buyers. Then I decided into a pre-construction industry as well. Pre-construction is basically you deal with the builders where they are saying that okay, you have to make a periodic payments and you can gonna get a house in future. So I
Yeah.
have touched in each segment, pre-sale, pre-con, as well as I do Airbnb as well, and I'm starting slowly starting into the development as well.
Yeah.
The reason I realized early in my industry that if you are an investor as well, you can be a better real estate agent as well because you know how to invest, how to think from the investor point of view as well. So I think every real estate agent, if if they are an investor as well, they can be a better agent. It's
Yeah.
just not just focus on sales.
Yeah, you're putting your money where your mouth is, basically. So
Yeah,
you're not. It's not just you're talking the talk. You're walking the talk as well.
walking the
So
talk. That's right.
yeah.
That's
So then, so I guess I want to move more towards the market side now. Then, um, based on, I mean, your background, based on the investment knowledge, all of that. Um, let's start off. Let's actually take a step back with the market going on today, um, with uncertainty in terms of interest rates, in terms of where the pricing is. From your perspective as investors, what are the type of questions, if for first-time investors, should those investors be thinking? Is this a good time to jump into the market? Is this a good time to hold back and wait? What kind of things should they be looking at to answer those questions? Because right now, there's a whole lot of uncertainty. I mean, depending on, now I would say, I'm not even going to say what day, depending on the same day, what time you open up your social media or the news, some guy's going to be telling you interest rates are going up, or prices are going to go up, prices are going to go down, interest rates are going to go down. It's all over the place. And so for people who feel like, you know what, inflation's now hitting like 10%, 20%, whatever it is, right? At least the unofficial inflation. And I don't want to keep money in the bank because that's not going to be providing me any kind of value. If anything is losing value, but I don't know where to invest. Is real estate like is something that I thought maybe was a good outlet. What about what's happening now? Should they be investing? What kind of questions should they be asking? What's the overall perspective that first-time investors should have in this market?
I'll give you a background. I've been doing real estate from last 7 years. I have seen three different type of markets, and every time the trend is remains the same. The first was 2016, 17, where the market went up and it went down. Second, it was 2020 again during COVID, and the third time now with the high interest rate. Every time, whenever the market peak up, the graph actually went down. I personally feel that we have somehow hit the bottom of the real estate right now because of the high interest rates.
Hmm.
People who have limited cash, they should hold on to it. But people who have to eventually buy a house, I would say next 4 months would be a good time to jump in because the interest rates are going to cut down for sure second quarter of 2024, and everyone will come out and start buying. So that's my insight that the next 4 months they should jump if they are planning to buy a house.
Yeah. No, I agree with the interest rate coming down, but why do you feel like they're going to come down? What's your perspective behind them coming down?
The market cannot sustain this interest rate. They know if they keep this for too long, people will either start defaulting, and a lot of people, a chunk of mortgages are about to be renewed. And I know if that interest rate stays on, they're not gonna afford it. People are gonna default.
So but when it comes down, you're saying that as soon as it comes down, we're going to have a boom in activity and people are going to kind of jump into the market. Is that
Yeah,
right?
because what's happened is last 7, 6, 7 months the transaction are very less. Almost, I was reading a data there was almost 4,000 transaction last month.
Yeah, yeah.
Usually we have like 8,000, 10,000. So imagine for a period of 8 months, 1 year, all these buyers are waiting on it. They're waiting when the interest will go down. We're gonna jump in. So imagine all buyers coming at once and buying it. What's going to
Yeah.
happen?
Yeah, yeah.
Market will come up.
Yeah, man, it's gonna get flooded. But then, as an investor, are you thinking any differently though? Because a lot of those guys, those individuals who are coming in and buying, they're buying for themselves. They're not necessarily investors. Do investors think differently, or are you saying that they should be kind of in the similar perspective of buy now, or are there kind of different metrics that they should be looking at when they're looking at investing in a market today?
It's kind of a same as well. Investors, I what is happening in this market is there are people who over invested, who over leveraged themselves because the market was keep going up, and those are the one who are basically checking out of the market. I'll give you an example. Right now, the most amount of deals and listing that you will see is the cottage industry because
Mm,
cottage industry was a secondary property for all these rich people. Those are the one that they're offloading. No one is offloading their principal resident, but they're offloading their cottages, secondary property. So the
mm-hmm.
investors should look at those things.
Yeah. Okay. So then, but then if there's a lot of cottages going on, and this is a question I get a lot, people want perspective because I think a lot of people felt that the market should be coming down or whatever, but when you open up MLS, um, there's there's a lot of inventory. Like you said, there's inventories going up, transactions 100% record low. I think it was September at least was the slowest in 20 years, or slowest September in 20 years. So there's a lot of these I would say doom and gloom kind of taglines people are putting out there. But at the same time, when you look at MLS, it's not like prices are tanking. And there's a lot of individuals who are like, you know what, I'm waiting for those prices to tank. Now, my question to you is, when somebody is in trouble, let's say, and there's somebody who's on the sideline who wants to buy this is more focused on those individuals who are on the sideline who want to buy a property at a great price. Now, if somebody's in trouble, do you think that they're going to get on the market and start posting their house at a very low price? Or is there some other way for you to find out where you can get good deals? Or do you think that the deals are like what's on MLS is on MLS and pretty much those are the prices, even though they're not having come down significantly, that's the best you can get? What's kind of your perspective on the market in terms of finding those good deals, finding those good priced assets that you can acquire for those, whether you're buying it cash, whether you're buying it with a mortgage, for investors and anybody else? How do you find those, you could say, diamonds in terms of the value you're getting in the market right now?
There are other venues as well other than MLS, and there are a lot of exclusive deals that are not posted not there. But you can only get that when you're active in the market, when you have enough network. It's like my brokerage have 3,000 agents, so we are connected to them. We
Mm-hmm.
ask them. Those are not posted on MLS. But the funny thing that is happening in the market, there's a tug of war. The seller, they're so stubborn. They're like, no, I'm last year the price was X. I'm not going to sell at a lower price. But the buyer is saying, no, market is going down. That's why there is a gap. There is a bridge of gap. You will see a lot of inventory, but buyers are not ready to pay the price. And because sellers know that with time, we know that the market's fundamentals are so strong that it's going to come up.
Mm.
To answer your question is, it's not just MLS. You need to be active in the market. You need to tell to your agent that can you find me an exclusive deals, and there
Yeah.
are exclusive deals in the market. But
Yeah.
they cannot. You need to understand in a search of diamond, you don't need to miss the gold.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, I mean that's what I tell a lot of people because a lot of people. Firstly, I guess my perspective. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that if somebody's in trouble, they're not going to be broadcasting it. It's not going to be like, "Hey, listen, man, I'm in trouble. Come buy my house for real cheap." Okay, they're going to try to get the most they possibly can. So you have to be, I guess, with a realtor, a strong realtor, who can kind of understand based on his conversations with the other realtor what kind of position the seller is in. Are they in a hurry to sell? Can they hold on and wait for another 6 months? And if they're in a hurry to sell, then you can go in and negotiate hard, as opposed to wasting your time negotiating hard with a seller who does not care. They're like, you know what, this is my price, like you said, right? They're being stubborn, and it doesn't matter. And then a lot of people will say, well, you know what, like I want to wait. I want to wait until I hit the market's at the absolute bottom. Like even if it's like down, and we're probably 99% to the bottom of the market. I want to squeeze out that last 1% so that I know I got the best deal. But the reality is that nobody can time the market. You can only figure out the bottom of the market when it's going on the back up, and it goes back up much faster than it came down, which I don't think people really understand that how it'll spring back as soon as, for example, the interest rates change or anything in the market changes.
yeah.
So for those guys who are thinking that, what would be a piece of advice that you can give them to help them kind of comprehend, like, hey, now is the time to kind of jump in? Or if you don't want to jump in, what are their other options as opposed to just standing on the sidelines and saying, I'm just going to somehow magically wait until one day the price is the lowest and I'm going to get some kind of message from God that I need to jump in now?
Yeah, I'll give you a good example, but you're right. As an agent, you need to understand the psychology as well. You sometimes you get an answer from the questions that you ask with the agent, right? That how much desperate the seller is, and what are they thinking? That's the question you need to ask them. You need to understand that it's like a game of nerves. You need to control your nerve when you're making an offer. So I'll give you an example. I had a client who was a both husband and wife. They were a banker, very good post, very knowledgeable. Last October 2022, when market was at the lowest, we saw a house in Mississauga, similar kind of house. We were getting that offer. We were getting that house for 1,035,000. They did not. They said no, market will further go down. We're gonna wait because they were in bank. They had a lot of knowledge inside. I
Hmm.
said, jump in now. You cannot time at the bottom. Jump in now. It's already low. They said no. January 2023 market picked up. No one was expecting. Suddenly, a lot of offers coming in. They bought a similar house on the same street, different house, for almost $70,000 more. Similar
Yeah.
house.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. And they knew that. I said, see, you don't need to wait for the bottom. There is a chance that you might end up paying it more.
Yeah.
And they were the
Yeah.
bank. They had all the knowledge from the bank. They knew exactly what's going on. But
Yeah. I
sometimes,
think. sorry to cut you off, but
Yeah.
like I think a lot of people, because they're kind of they're treating this like a stock market game, right? Like one of those, like, oh, the market's gone up, down, like every day they're seeing it like tick, when houses are not like that, right? In the grand scheme of things, right? 50,000, 60,000 is not a lot if you can appreciate, if $1 million home can appreciate 10%, 15, 20%, you're still not out. That's one thing. The other thing is, I think that there's an illusion. I feel like that people are deluded into thinking that this is a very scientific approach, right? Where like, oh yeah, the Bank of Canada is increasing the rate, so now this is going to happen, and they start using this logic that the market doesn't really have, right? Because we saw the same logic during COVID, right? According to that logic, COVID interest rates were going down. The world was locked down, yet we had record increase in prices. People were buying homes without looking at them, without any conditions, without anything. At that time, people were scared. A lot of people, I spoke to a lot of people when everything was shutting down, that this is going to, first of all, it was unprecedented. We didn't think that there was going to be some kind of epidemic where everybody had to stay in their house for 2 years. That was unprecedented. Nobody saw that. The next day it happened. And then the next day, people are like, you know what? How am I going to be able to buy or sell a house when nobody can come see my house? But even in that market, everything boomed, right? So I don't think people use this reasoning, and the kind of, I guess it's not that reasoning is bad, but they're using the wrong things to look at this stuff. I feel like at the end of the day, this entire process is a human process. There's a lot of emotions involved. There's a lot of other things involved that you can't time the market based on reading the news. You have to be working with somebody who's kind of in it, who has a feeling. And it sounds weird because the feeling is not like, it's not my feeling that I got up in the morning and I was like, it's if somebody's working in the industry for as long as you have and knows the experience, has gone through so many transactions, you do get feelings. Like I can't get that feeling, even though I'm on real estate on the back end. Being the lawyer, I have the back end experience. And the back end, I can get experience feelings on what things can go bad and whatever. But I don't have a feeling on the front end. I have a feeling on just the legal side of it. But that feeling goes a long way, and it's not a irrational source of information. It is, I would say, a culmination of a
Yeah.
lot of things that is in the back of your mind subconsciously that you can throw out. Like, what's your opinion on working off of the feeling of an agent, of a realtor that you're working with? What's your experience on that?
You rightly said, and that's why I said, if you are active in the market, you know what's going on. Before all these news, are more buyers coming in or more buyers are backing out. The COVID example you mentioned, COVID. I'll also give you one more good example. The opposite of it. During COVID, when all news were coming out, oh, we need to defer the mortgage, people were applying for stuff, when everything shut down. That was Feb 2020, I believe, if I'm
Yeah,
not wrong.
yeah, yeah,
I was sitting at home. Even I applied for CERB because 30 days, you didn't do anything, you can apply for CERB. Suddenly, I got a call from this client say, hey, I want to buy a house. Can you show me? I hold on. I told my wife, are they crazy? Are they buying a house in a COVID where everything is shut down, where you were so awkward? How are you gonna shake hand with your client? Are you gonna say what? Those kind of it was I was sitting 30 days at home and there was a social anxiety. But this person called me, he wants to buy a house. I went and it was completely shut down, hardly any showings were happening. They got a house during that peak COVID, and what an amazing price they got. And after 1 year, when everything went peak, the market appreciated. I said, "What a decision they made!"
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Telling them they are the one who making a wrong decision. So what I realized in that market is every time when all the people are going into one direction, you should not be the one. Go to the opposite direction. That's where you're gonna win. Right
Yeah.
now, that's what exactly is happening. Everyone is backing out, don't want to invest, and this is the time where you need to jump in.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's the Warren Buffett
Yes,
quote where it's like when everyone is fearful, you need to be greedy. When everyone's greedy, you need to be fearful. So,
exactly,
so
exactly.
So
So
now's the time to be greedy because everybody's fearful. Everybody's
yes,
fearful. Everybody's scared of what's gonna go, and they don't have pockets to buy the houses that are out there either.
yes. So the emotion that you're talking about, it's actually true. These emotion actually drive the market more than the news.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a lot of the what's rationalized be in the newspapers that we hear. It's to sell like newspapers because they're not going to sell newspapers if they told everybody to calm down, everything's going to be all right, right? It's always, oh my God, the sky is falling, and if you don't act now, run one way or the other, you're going to be gone forever. So I think that's what kind of is getting a lot of people to second guess. But if you have the courage, right, now is I agree is the best time to buy property. I find that you can negotiate. Like what I find to be another kind of joke, right? And I'm speaking from the legal end of it, is that in 2021, for example, was it 21 or 20, beginning of 2022, right before interest rates started going up, people are buying homes with zero conditions. It was like a chocolate bar. There's
Yes,
no,
yes.
there's no condition on finance. There's no condition on home inspection. There's a lot of other crazy conditions. Those two I always suggest because, what if you can't get the money? I know you're confident, but what if you can't, right? And then the home inspection, like you want to make sure that like because buyers buy homes as is. They don't buy it based on any kind of warranties or guarantees unless they're in the contract. For most part, they're not. So you do your home inspection. You make sure for the most part it's good. Obviously, if a new home is not going to be perfect, but you understand what you're getting into, right? People didn't do that after that. The house is leaking. This is going on. That's going on. And I'm like, well, you didn't put in the contract, so unfortunately, whatever. Now you can go in, you can negotiate on price, right? It wasn't like that. That was another thing, right? Like people would, if the house is worth 1 million, it was listed at 800,000. Not because you're going to get a deal, but because now you have no insight on what the price should be. You have to go into a blind kind of bidding and try to, whoever has the biggest number wins, right? Where now you can actually go in, negotiate, have some breathing room, look at the house, see if it's good, have a financing condition. There are so many people who went in firm and then realized maybe I don't qualify for this or the house isn't qualified. Now they're getting into like first and second mortgages just to close a transaction. And for a lot of people, when the market was going up, they're like, whatever, it'll increase another 25% if for until infinity, and so I'll just flip it. But then it stopped and everything stopped. But now is a time where you can think about every single thing. You can negotiate on every single thing and actually come to an agreement that I find is not one-sided, but it's fair and equitable. It's not something that, like, and I found like, for example, even no financing conditions, that doesn't even help the seller because you want to know that the buyer can buy your home before the night before the close when they say, listen, we tried and we can't, right? It's good for everybody. It's good for all the professionals involved for them to go and figure out their financing and make sure the house qualifies as opposed to kind of doing that. So my question is, what do you think about these conditions? Are these something that you're seeing more of? Are you seeing more strenuous conditions? I know I've heard of, and I'm not sure how much is out there. Maybe you could talk about this a little bit more than I can. There are people or individuals, buyers, putting in conditions that the contract is contingent on the sale of their home. So I've seen some of those. So what's your opinion on that conditional kind of environment? Where do you draw the line? Where do you think, okay, well, you know what, you could have conditions, but enough is enough. We have to think about that too. What's kind of your perspective on all of that?
You rightly said there was a time when people were just blindly putting an offer. I've seen people not even looking at the house, looking at the pictures and putting an offer. The word that in real estate industry that we use is like a compromising stage and FOMO, fear of
Yeah.
missing. That's real. When people start losing like three, four offers, they have this anxiety. Okay, I'm gonna lose the next one. Let's just go aggressive on it.
Hmm.
And also they get into a compromising stage. That's fine. I'm getting four out of three things. I'm gonna buy it. That's happened when it's a peak market. Right now it's opposite. Right now
Yeah.
there is no compromising stage. They have enough time to act on it because nothing is rushing out. So yes, we see more conditions, absolutely, and which is completely fair as well, and that's how it should be.
Hmm.
Because if you don't put the inspection condition, and God forbid, if you close down and something you find out after you move into the house, the blame that goes is us.
Hmm.
Why didn't you suggest us to put the inspection condition?
Yeah.
So we are always on the hook. I also use an example that if my client, after moving in, if they call me and ask me, hey, Ajit, uh, I own the house, can I flush my toilet? I said, of course you can. We still pick up their phone and we answer that. But let's say
Yeah.
if it doesn't work, we are the one basically will be getting blamed until they move out from that house. So I absolutely suggest putting that condition. But when the market is at peak, the fear of missing out doesn't allow you to put those conditions as well.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Yeah. No, 100%. So that's why I say like now's a great time. Now, I want to move to change gears a little bit. I know normally I ask this in the beginning of the podcast, but we were on a roll and I didn't want to interject it with this now. So giving them, I want to talk a little bit about working with you. So for my listeners, right, who are looking for a realtor, what is it like working with you? Do you have a process? Do you want people just to give you a call, email, schedule something? What is a process working with you, and how do you, if you can run down what it's like, what that journey is for our listeners a little bit in terms of working with you, and how early on in the process should they be reaching out? Should they be reaching out like a month in advance, 6 months in advance, a year in advance? What's kind of your perspective on that?
there's no timeline on it because I've seen people who call me 1 year before as well. One thing that definitely an initial phone consultation, that's how we start with, because people do ask before they get into the house, the first thing they ask is, am I financially, like, how much is my capability, right?
Hmm.
So as a real estate agent, what I've learned, and I can confidently say that I have a knowledge of mortgage, accounting, and the legal side of it as well. Real estate we
Mm-hmm.
do, but you need to have all those knowledge. So I'm a one-stop solution. If they call me, I can guide them exactly how much they can qualify for the mortgage, what are their tax implication, and I can guide them according to the market condition as well. The other thing, what I think I have benefited is as an investor, because I've invested in so many things, I know what the return is out like. I have seen those return. I have seen
Mm-hmm.
those numbers out there. I'm not just talking about it. Walk the talk that we talk.
Yeah.
So start with phone consultation, and I can guide you the process about the different aspect of real estate as well, whether it's resale, pre-con, whether it's building a house, whether it's Airbnb. Everything can be done under one umbrella.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you. For all of my listeners, if anybody wants to reach out to Jeet, depending on where you're listening, his contact information is going to be below or on the side. I don't know if I'm pointing to the right side, but check it out. Definitely reach out. Thanks for coming on, Ajeet. Do you have any last words before we sign off?
No, it was definitely good. I want to ask when this gonna be live as well, so I can share to my followers as well. But absolutely, I mean, it was wonderful. It was my first podcast actually, and didn't feel like, yeah, you made it very smoothly and good questions. I wasn't expecting it would be so smooth. I think you made it very good podcast at the end.
Awesome, awesome, and yep, thanks for coming on. It's always a pleasure to have people who know what they're talking about on and talking about how to actually navigate the market appropriately. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.